Kadam Dadi Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavangsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitangsha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanustute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyasya Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktarinda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. So, so. Okay, so here we go. Sri Isopanisad, invocation and mantras 1 to 3. So this is in most editions of the Isopanisad, this is the front cover. We see Mahavishnu here, lying, standing. There's a standing picture actually in the causal ocean. And here we have actually the real ocean here. So I actually put this picture because this picture has actually made many devotees, and Ishopanishad, the book in general, has made many devotees. It's a very kind of unique, very powerful image because, we see this, Sheshanag behind Mahavishnu. And many people, they mention how normally snakes are seen as something negative, like negative, snakes, all these things. But here, this is a divine snake. And it's, behind the Lord in such a, amazing way. And the Lord is looking so beautiful. So the Upanishads, there's so many different um, literatures in our Sanskrit tradition. And we have the Vedas, we have the Puranas, we have the Itihasas, some main categories. And there's two main categories. One is Shruti and the other is Smriti. Shruti means literatures that are directly spoken by God. And Smriti means histories that are written down. Our understanding, our own tradition has told us that Vyasadeva, Krishna himself, wrote Srimad Bhagavatam as the conclusion of the Vedas. However, many people who are not in our tradition, they don't agree that Bhagavatam is, the summum bonum of all Vedic literature. They say Bhagavatam is Smriti. It is history. It's part of the Puranas. And Shruti are the Vedas and the Upanishads. Now, most traditions, basically all Vaishnava traditions, even Shaiva, most traditions, they don't read the four Vedas. The Vedas are very, very technical, very uh, expansive, oceanic, like too much for our present time. And their process is very gradual in some ways, like they gradually take one back to the spiritual world. However, um, the point here is that that the Upanishads that most people don't know, they are actually part of the Vedas. This is why they're called Vedanta, Veda Anta. So these Upanishads actually reside in the Vedas, like they're part of the Yajurveda and other Vedas. So what people, just in scholarly circles, Hinduism in general, Sanskrit tradition in general, what they read when they read the Vedas are the Upanishads. So Upanishads, philosophically speaking, are the backbone. They're the core of Vedic knowledge, right? Just based on the tradition, our previous acharyas and they're drawing from the Upanishads, they're commenting on it. So if we don't connect with the Upanishads from is clearly, like you could say, scholarly point of view, a point of view of authenticity or authority, it's a drawback. Because people say the whole Vedas are there. You're not commenting on the Vedas, and Vedas is Shruti. Of course, yeah, another point, we regard Bhagavad Gita as Shruti, and most traditions do because it's directly spoken by Krishna. But still, the Gita is in the Mahabharata, which is one of the itihasas, one of the smritis, one of the histories of the tradition. So there's so much writing, the Bhagavatam, the Bhagavad Gita, Chaitanya Charitamrita, all these things from the Smriti literature. But from the Shruti literature, one could say there's nothing. And in order to, though we have no need, we're fully satisfied with Bhagavatam. We ourselves, we know that the Bhagavatam is the fifth Veda. It's the fruit of Vedic knowledge. But just so, no one can even give that criticism. And also, so we have the essence of this Shruti literature. Srila Prabhupada translated the Isopanisad. It's a very important point. We must, we must think and reflect on this point very carefully. That Isopanisad, why it is so special, so important. And among all the Upanishads, so we said the Upanishads is the essence of the Vedas. The Isopanishad is actually, if you look back in the Acharyas, it's the most recommended Upanishad because again, it gives the most direct and deepest information about the Lord. If you quote from the Isopanishad, and Prabhupada, you'll see in his books also quotes from the Katha Upanishad, the Kena Upanishad, the Nityo Nityanam, Chetanas Chetananam, to provide evidences. So it's not just Isopanishad. Prabhupada uses the other Upanishads in his books as forms of evidence and all those things. Because he does this, he's clearly connecting with that tradition. But as far as our knowledge concerns, we don't have that oceanic knowledge that Srila Prabhupada has. And so, therefore, if we draw from the Isopanishad, it becomes fully bona fide. Everything we're saying, it's also based on the Vedas. And you'll see how the instruction, the message of the Isopanishad is the same as the message as the Bhagavatam, which is the same as the message of the Gita. And the Mayavadi scholars, they have difficulty dealing with the Isopanishad because this Upanishad also clearly responds to impersonalism and establishes the personality of the Lord. It's a very philosophical Upanishad, very powerful philosophical messages are there. And this is why, again, this book has made a lot of devotees. It's a very thin book distribution, but just like, someone did a study on which books makes the most devotees, Science of Self-Realization and Isopanishad. and Bhagavad Gita. These were like three that were very prominent. Of course, all of Prabhupada's books, they make millions of devotees, but but very often we find people like saying, "Oh, this was my first book, and somehow this just touched my heart," because you'll see the 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 knowledge also given is very, for example, very appealing to a philosophy student, very appealing to a person who's studying philosophy or religion. His Grace Ravinder Sarup Prabhu, who was one of the gurus in this movement, he was a PhD in theology, was doing that while he met the devotees. He said that he became a devotee by reading Ishopanishad. And he even mentioned the particular sentences that really struck a chord in his heart when he read them, as you will see. Where that sentence actually is where Prabhupada says that that one cannot know the absolute truth simply by the process of negation, simply by the logical process of elimination. One has to have positive spiritual knowledge about God. And therefore impersonalism falls short because it says God is not this, not this. God is simply non-material, but it doesn't tell us what his spiritual being is. So this is a very quick introduction on why the Ishopanishad is so important. And now we get into kind of the book itself and its introduction. So here we have introducing Sri Ishopanishad. Ishopanishad is composed of two words. The first part is Isha, the second part is Upanishad. Isha means the supreme controller. So it's about Isha. This book, this Upanishad specifically, is about God. Upanishad, this is the name for all the Upanishads, means Upanishad means sit, Upa means near, Ni means down, and Sad means to sit. So Upanishads, if you see the Upanishads, all of them are conversations between the guru and the disciple. And though they're conversations between the guru and disciple, they're shruti, not smriti, because they're spoken by Krishna. They're part of the Veda, which is eternal, spoken by God. Yet they're talking about rishis and sages who are speaking to their disciples. And it's very amazing, these Upanishads, sometimes even like a little they're little amusing because you have like Yajnavalkya and his disciple, or I can't remember if he's a disciple, but and he comes to his guru and he says, "Please give me spiritual knowledge." The guru says, "Go and perform austerity for 1,000 years, then come back to me." And he performs austerity for 1,000 years, and then he comes back, and then his guru gives him, the next thing, like that. So very kind of sweet exchanges, and also you see how this knowledge is like realized. The disciples need to perform great austerities to know this. But the book itself, Upanishad, the title itself of these books is showing the process of receiving spiritual knowledge. How do we receive spiritual knowledge? We go near, we sit down, and we hear from the realized soul. There are four Vedas, the Rig, the Yajur, the Sama, and the Atharva. Sri Ishopanishad is found in the Yajur Veda, as I mentioned, Yajur Veda. The Yajur Veda has quite a few Upanishads as part of it. Yajur means instructions for performing sacrifice. Yagya, Yajur. Veda means knowledge. Sri Ishopanishad unlocks the secret to satisfaction and fulfillment. So how can we be satisfied and fulfilled? It defines good and evil, it reveals the Lord, and invokes Krishna's mercy. The author of Sri Ishopanishad. Regarding your first question, who is the speaker of Ishopanishad? The speaker is the Vedas personified. In the Vedic age, a disciple heard from the spiritual master, which were coming down in disciplic succession. So, a disciple, whatever he heard from his bona fide spiritual master, would recite. The Vedic mantras are known as Shruti, to hear from the authoritative source. There we go, Shruti. And then repeat it, chanting. So there's no question of who wrote it. It is said that no human being has compiled them. Later on, before the beginning of Kali Yuga, all Vedic mantras were written in books. Most of them were done by Srila Vyasadeva Mahamuni and his different disciples. Letter to Chitsukhananda, Los Angeles, 28th April 1970. I just wanted to mention in this part that these are actually the different parts of the Isopanisad. So the first few verses are dealing with satisfaction and fulfillment, accepting one's quota, not more than that. Then what is good and evil, the Lord's mercy, etc. And then at the end, they're begging for Krishna's mercy. So it's a very personal Upanishad, actually, kind of different from the other Upanishads that are very philosophical in nature. And so Prabhupada here is saying that Isopanishad is aparushaya. It has no beginning. It has no human author. It is directly revealed from Lord Krishna to the heart of Brahma. Why? Because the Veda is eternal. And Brahma heard the Vedas from Vishnu, from Krishna. This is how he received knowledge to create all these worlds. And this is how he is giving us this Vedic knowledge, right? We're the Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya. So he heard the Vedas. Isopanishad is part of the Yajurveda, and that's why there's no author, no human author to the Vedas. It's coming from Krishna. The Brahma Samhita described that the sound of Krishna's flute is what inspired this knowledge in the heart of Brahma. So this Isopanishad talks about belief and action and how this leads to that this will lead to a particular lifestyle. What a person believes and how a person acts are intimately related. A person who has no belief in the existence of God will act simply according to his whims and desires, accepting them as the only purpose in life. A person who believes in God only as the Creator and Father to be feared and obeyed will attempt to follow his laws, but will also try to enjoy his own desires as much as possible. And a person who sees God as a supreme enjoyer and friend will simply try to serve him with devotion while practicing detachment from his or her selfish desires. Thus, our beliefs and actions combined make up our overall lifestyle. All revealed scriptures stress the purification of our beliefs and actions by giving us spiritual knowledge and practices to follow. By studying and realizing this knowledge and following these practices, we can make genuine spiritual advancement. So, first thing that we need is knowledge. If we have the right knowledge, it will inspire right action. And by having this right action and having the right understanding, that leads to a nice lifestyle. So all the revealed scriptures are trying to bring us to the point of a natural lifestyle, a spiritual lifestyle. But they start from the point, and here we see a very equanimical discourse going on here. They start from the point of philosophy. And Isopanishad also talks about philosophy. But why are we mentioning this? Because in the Vedic scriptures, in Western thought, you can have philosophy for philosophy's sake. It's called armchair philosophy, right? Socrates, Aristotle, Plato, they talked about just beauty. What is beauty? What is, this or that, just for the sake of discussing it. What is aesthetic, what is morality, with no definite discussion of how it affects our action. However, in Vedic scriptures, philosophy means what scholars today say path philosophy. Philosophy means philosophy that leads to a certain goal or path. That's the only reason philosophy would be useful, if philosophy actually leads to a change in action or to a path of progress. Right? Bhagavatam defines knowledge as reality distinguished from illusion. Not just that, but that's the first part, reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all. Right? So it also has to be done for the welfare of all. So the Upanishads, which are the ancient philosophical books, they are path philosophies. They're not just talking about philosophy, but they're talking about it in the context of spiritual practices, spiritual progress, and how we can progress using that knowledge as a springboard. So that's extremely important that we understand this point, that philosophy was always connected with practice. In Vedic philosophical systems, there's 6 philosophical systems. One of them is Vedanta, and that's what we are doing. Upanishads is Vedanta. But basically, there's Mimamsa and Vedanta, which are both kind of Purva and Uttara Mimamsa, based on the Vedas. Then you have Sankhya and Nyaya. And then you have Yoga and forgetting the 6th one. Vedanta, Sankhya. Is it Vedanta, Mimamsa, Sankhya? Oh, well, yeah. Okay. Sorry. You have Nyaya and Vaisheshika, and then you have Yoga and Sankhya. Now, we all know yoga. Yoga means practice. Yoga means exercise. But that's one of the 6 philosophical systems. Why? Because philosophy was not seen as separate from practice. So yoga is also philosophy and it's also practice. Vedanta is a philosophy and it's also a practice. Even Mimamsa, which is just reciting, Mimamsa is about the Vedic text, there's a practice side to it, which is reciting it. Nyaya is the practice of logic, so the science of logic and the practice of logic. Sankhya is the elements. We find that in the Bhagavatam, right? Sankhya is the philosophical system of all the elements, and it's the ancient form of chemistry, right? All the elements are there. But Sankhya, as we see in the Gita and the Bhagavatam, is also practice. Because through Sankhya, one can, meditating on the different elements, one removes the coverings of the onion to find out, well, who are we then truly? We are the 25th element, which is the Atma. So Sankhya becomes a form of practice or meditation. And then finally, you have Vaisheshika, which is atomism. It talks about the Paramanu. And that one is like the ancient physics. And that also is a practice. There's the rishis and munis who were the Vaisheshika munis, and they would analyze again this material world and its different parts, and to understand the energy of the Lord, to understand the presence of the Lord within every atom. So there's always 3 parts to knowledge. There's the belief, which is the sambandha, and that is the invocation mantra, which we will start from. The Supreme Lord is fully complete in his 3 features, and we are complete when we are dovetailed with him. So it starts with knowledge of reality, ontological reality. What is truth? What is knowledge? This is the sambandha. This is the knowledge of who we are and who is God and what is our relationship with him. The second one is abhideya, the practical application, which is mantra 1. If you know that God is this complete whole, then accept only your quota and engage in the Lord's service. And the final one is prayojana, which is the goal, mantra 2, achieve everlasting life. That's mantra 2. And this we find at the end, that once we are accepting only our quota and engaging in the Lord's service, then the Lord reveals himself. We can see the light, and then the devotee, through their devotion, asks the Lord, please remove this light so that I can see you. And that's the prayojan. In the introduction, so there's a long introduction to this book, as Prabhupada always gives so painstakingly and kindly, gives an introduction to the books. Though he doesn't need to, but he does. It's simply out of his love for all of us. He talks about this point of Isopanisad being spoken by the Lord and therefore being perfect, because it doesn't have a human author. Human authors have 4 defects. And this is why human literature is always defective, unless it's inspired by God through a devotee. But normal human literature is defective. But this literature is not defective, because humans have 4 defects. In our present materially conditioned state, we cannot attain perfect knowledge through our sense perception, pratyaksha, or logical reasoning. Our sense perception, which is pratyaksha, our seeing, right? People say seeing is believing. Logical reasoning, anuman. So due to knowledge that's attained through sense perception and reasoning has the 4 defective tendencies. We tend to commit mistakes, to be an illusion or to accept what is not, to have imperfect senses, and to cheat. So all conditioned human beings have these 4 defects. And if they use sense perception, they tend to perform these defects. We make mistakes. We don't remember something properly. We say something that we don't intend to, whatever. Everyone makes mistakes, right? They say to error is to human, to be human. Then we can easily come under illusion. We can misunderstand a situation. We can misjudge a situation. So when we're in a desert, we see a mirage and we think it's water. Someone speaks to us and deceives us. So it's not just that we make mistakes, but we also come under illusion. Others can deceive us. We have imperfect senses. So the example Prabhupada gives of this in the introduction is that our hand, when it's dark, we cannot even see our hand. In the darkness, the hand is not visible. What to speak of other things? Our own hand we cannot see because we have imperfect senses. So with imperfect senses, how can we make perfect decisions through sense perception? This is why the scientific method is ultimately flawed. I mean, it can't be perfect because the scientists, all of us, have imperfect senses. And if the basis of knowledge is sense perception, which is also the basis of logical reasoning, reasoning is based upon sense perception. You can only reason about something that you see or know. If you don't even know it, if you don't even see it, how can you reason about it? So there's some sense perception that leads to a thought. So if our sense perception is imperfect, we cannot come to perfect knowledge. And that's why people keep going in circles. And finally, to cheat or be cheated. This is a big problem. That we become cheated very easily by others, or we want to cheat them. This is a human tendency, right? This is why politics exists. It's a way of trying to cheat others, right? Or gambling. So then, how do we attain perfect knowledge? We have two Two, this is called epistemology in philosophy. It's a very philosophical text. The first thing it talks about is epistemology means how do we know what we know? So we know it through sense perception or logical reasoning. This is how we get material knowledge, which is defective. Spiritual knowledge is based on a third process. The epistemology is based upon a third way of getting spiritual knowledge is shabda, or hearing from a higher source, or the Vedic literatures, which are free from all imperfections. Transcendental or spiritual knowledge is far beyond the reach of our material senses, pratyaksha or logic, anuman. Therefore, we must accept Vedic knowledge as it is, revealed by the highest authority, the Supreme Lord Krishna, who has been accepted as such by all transcendentalists and acharyas of the past. How do we attain perfect knowledge? In order to realize spiritual knowledge, one must approach a spiritual master who has also properly heard the Vedic message from his spiritual master and was fixed in spiritual life. Such a self-realized soul can lead us to the goal of Vedic knowledge, which is Krishna. So that's Shabda. That's spiritual knowledge through Shabda, through the disciplic succession. By getting knowledge from a higher source, either Krishna himself through the scriptures or through the self-realized devotee, we can get knowledge that is free from the four defects. And honestly, it's such a relief because, when you have to make decisions in this life, you're like, well, is this the right decision or is that the right decision? What's the right decision? How do we move about? How do we, carry ourselves in these situations? Um, so um, this is how we do it, right? This is the process of spiritual realization. That if we get knowledge from the perfect source, we don't have to think, is this the right decision or is this the wrong decision? We can get it from the right source and be confident that this knowledge this is the right way to do things. This is the right process. There is a spiritual sky. There's another nature, which is beyond manifestation and non-manifestation. But how will you know that there is a sky where the planets and inhabitants are eternal? All this knowledge is there, but how will you make experiments? It is not possible. Therefore, you have to take the assistance of the Vedas. This is called Vedic knowledge. In our Krishna consciousness movement, we are accepting knowledge from the highest authority, Krishna. Krishna is accepted as the highest authority by all classes of men. I am speaking first of the two classes of transcendentalists. One class of transcendentalists is called impersonalists, Mayavadi. They are generally known as Vedantists, led by Shankaracharya. And there's another class of transcendentalists called Vaishnavas, like Ramanujacharya, Madhvacharya, and Vishnu Swami. So, same point here that Isopanisad is the highest authority, and this is how we can get spiritual knowledge. Prabhupada here is saying, highest authority is Krishna, and it's spoken by Krishna, and therefore we can get real knowledge about Krishna. And Prabhupada gives a very nice example of this. The analogy to make it logical, why this process makes so much sense, is because he says if a child wants to know who his father is, then he can try the process of sense perception and reasoning. He can go through an eliminative process and, you know, talk to so many men and say, oh, are you my father? Do you know my mother? And do maybe a genetic test and figure out this person, my father. Let's say he doesn't know who his father is. But a very simple way and the most dependable way is that the child asks the mother. If the child asks the mother, then the mother can immediately tell him, this is who your father is. Right? Because the mother is a natural authority in that situation. She gave birth to the child. She knows who the father is. So though the process of anuman and pratyaksha, sense perception and reasoning, can be used, it's very cumbersome and it's very imperfect. You may never come to the right conclusion. But through the process of shabda, it requires a little faith, but then that faith is not blind faith. It's based upon the relationship with the mother. It's, you know that this is my mother and she has good intention, so she has no reason to lie to me, and she also has this knowledge, and so she's telling me this knowledge. Similarly, if we go to a self-realized soul, if they're truly a self-realized soul, they don't have duplicity in their heart, they don't have any type of agenda, so they will give you the real spiritual knowledge. And the same is with the scriptures. So this is these are the this is the scriptures, and then we have the transcendentalists. And among the transcendentalists, these people are interpreting the Vedic knowledge. Some of them, like Shankaracharya and the Mayavadi philosophers, are misinterpreting it, but others, like the Vaishnava Swamis, Ramanujaya, Madhvacharya, Vishnu Swami, they are like the mother. They're true to the word. Their intention is simply to guide beings back to God, and they're giving that spiritual knowledge to us in an authorized way. So this process of shabda is called shastra chakshusha, seeing through the eyes of the scripture. We have so much to see, right? And we try to see. But when we see using our own human vision, then we may see imperfectly. Just like a person who doesn't have clear vision, if they see directly, they don't see anything. But if they put glasses, even though the glasses are there in between us and the object, we see more clearly. In the same way, when we see using the scriptures, then we see more clearly. And here's the overview of the invocation and mantras 1 through 3. The invocation is the principle of completeness. Mantra 1, how to practice that completeness. Mantra 2, the positive result of such practice. And mantra 3, the negative result of not doing such practice. So this is the next section. I was thinking, let's see, 7:45. Let's just do the invocation today, and then we can do this. So this again goes back to what we were just saying, how Prabhupada is bringing us to this point of Sambandha, Abhideya, and Prayojana. So the invocation is the Sambandha, the knowledge. Mantra 1 is how to practice it, which is the Abhideya. And mantra 2 and 3 are the result of the positive result and the negative result of that practice. So they're sort of expanding on the practice point. So invocation 1, text 1, which is the invocation. Om Purnam Mada Purnam Purnat Purnam Mudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnam Mudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. The personality of Godhead is perfect and complete. And because he is completely perfect, all emanations from him, such as this phenomenal world, are perfectly equipped as complete wholes. Whatever is produced of the complete whole is also complete in itself. Because he is the complete whole, even though so many complete units emanate from him, he remains the complete balance. Such an amazing text. And like very much like the Vedic text, it starts with the word Om, right? Om. It always starts with Om. So the personality of God is perfectly complete. So Krishna's infinity. And because he is completely perfect, all emanations from him, such as this phenomenal world, are also equipped as complete wholes. So even what is produced is complete. Whatever is produced of the complete whole is also complete in itself, because he is the complete whole. Even though so many complete units emanate from him, he remains the complete balance. So this is the foundation of knowledge of the Supreme Person. The invocation provides a foundation of knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The most important point to be understood here is that the absolute truth is ultimately a person. Even though so many complete units emanate from him, he remains the complete balance. So Prabhupada was very clear on this point on many points, that we are all part and parcel of Krishna. Everything is the energy of Krishna. However, even though we are part and parcel of Krishna, if you take us out of Krishna, so to say, away from him, Krishna still remains complete. Because you cannot reduce infinity. Krishna's infinite. So even though complete units come out of him, Krishna is still complete. And there's nowhere else for them to go. They still remain in him. So there's no way to actually divide anything from him. But even looking at him, if we're all part and parcel, it's not that if you divide Krishna himself, we're all, there's nothing outside of God. But even within God, it's not that you can take the parts out and then what's left is nothing. Like you can identify all the parts and what's left is nothing. No, it doesn't work like that. What's going to be left is also Krishna, fully Krishna. It is not that since everything has come from him that he is just spread out everywhere in some impersonal way, as our mundane logic would conclude. He maintains his own personality. So from the very beginning, this verse is refuting impersonalism. It's saying impersonalism is not right because this is an impersonal conception that, well, because we're all part of Krishna, Krishna is just like spread out in all of us. No, Krishna is his own personality and we are all part and parcel of him. The Supreme Lord is complete in three aspects. And so how does this work then? The all-pervading impersonal feature does exist and is known as Brahman. This Brahman is present as the Lord's effulgence and encompasses his aspect of Sat, or eternity. So the impersonal aspect, or not even just impersonal, the all-pervasive aspect of the Lord is Brahman. And we are all part of that. We're all, the whole material world is part of this Brahman. But that's just the emanation coming from the Lord and part of the Lord, but it's the effulgence in some ways, his energies. But number two is he's also present in a more personal way locally in the heart of every living creature and within every atom. This feature is known as Paramatma and encompasses his aspect of Chit, or knowledge. But the highest realization of him is as the Supreme Person Bhagavan, who encompasses his aspect of bliss through his own pastimes of ananda, or enjoyment. So very nice. So Brahman has a Sat part, Paramatma has the Chit part, which is the knowledge. So it's not just eternity, but you have the eternity and it includes the previous one and also knowledge of the Lord. Because Paramatma realization, when we realize Paramatma within our heart, we see the Lord within our heart. So that's eternity and also knowledge. The aspect of eternal life is realized, but the knowledge of the Lord is there. You know who Krishna is. However, there's no relationship there at that point. There's no enjoyment or pastime. And that is attained in the Bhagavan stage. When we realize Krishna as a person, he's not just a picture in our heart, but he's actually a person. Then there's Ananda. Prabhupada actually said that Paramatma is like a picture in our heart. The Lord is present, but it's it's like a two-dimensional presence of the Lord. We really can't have a reciprocation. We do because he gives us knowledge. See, he's a source of all awareness. But Krishna is more there in a passive way. But the active relationship comes with the Bhagavan realization. And then we realize Ananda. So what is spirit? Spirit is Sat, Chit, and Ananda. And with each feature, with each aspect, we successively realize these three different spiritual aspects. And in the stage of Ananda, we have that close relationship with Krishna. The invocation in the purport, Prabhupada focuses that everything must be realization of our connection with the complete whole is what makes us realize our completeness. So, in response to this verse, someone may say that if we are complete emanations, then why do we need Krishna? We're complete. Krishna is complete and everything emanating from him is complete. So if we are complete, then why do we need Krishna? The individual living entities are also complete in themselves, but remain as parts of the complete whole. Prabhupada gives the example of the hand, which is also complete in itself, as still being part of the whole body. So the hand is complete. I mean, hand has its complete function. In order for the living entities to feel a sense of completeness or full satisfaction, they must dovetail their enjoyment with the enjoyment of the complete whole as a supreme person. So the hand is complete, but its completeness can only be realized in relation to the complete body, when it's connected with the body, when it's getting nourishment through the stomach. In the same way, our completeness and satisfaction can only be realized in enjoyment with Krishna, the whole body, the Supreme Person. Thus, this foundational verse of knowledge gives us a hint of our relationship with him. So, we are dependent on Krishna, but Krishna is not dependent on us. Krishna is independent. Krishna can be complete even without us, or Krishna remains complete in spite of having parts and parcels. However, the parts and parcels can only realize their completeness in relation to the supreme whole. And this is where all material analogies break down, because you may say that the hand is complete, but it realizes its completeness only in relation to the body. But someone would say, well, the body is only complete with the hand. If you take the hand away, it's not complete. But no, in terms of Krishna, he is already a full person. And we are like, a connection, another hand. Another analogy that's given is like fire and the sparks. A fire is always complete. The sparks coming out are also complete. But if they stay with the fire, they still keep on shining. But if they go separate, then they, become dark and black. They become ash. So in the same way, as long as we're connected with the supreme fire, we shine brightly. But when we become separate, we lose our brilliance. Srila Prabhupada's mood and mission: Krishna is a person. The complete whole is not formless. Prabhupada challenges, says, the complete whole is not formless. If he were formless, or if he were less than his creation in any way, he could not be complete. What a logic. Such a simple but profound logic. The complete whole must contain everything, both within and beyond our experience. Otherwise, he cannot be complete. That's the end of the invocation. Okay. So it's 8 o'clock. I think it's a good point to stop because the next verse will take a long time. It's a very important verse. So I'll stop here. And also this material, as you can see, is very philosophical. This part, actually, after this is less philosophical. Now we get into the practice part. but today I kind of submerged ourselves in philosophy. Maybe we'll just read this verse so we can start thinking about it, and next time we'll discuss it in detail. Ishavashyamidam sarvam yatkincha jagatyam jagat tena taktena bhunjita magridha kashyasvidhanam. Everything animate or inanimate that is within the universe is controlled and owned by the Lord. One should therefore accept only those things necessary for himself, which are set aside as his quota, and one should not accept other things, knowing well to whom they belong. So realizing that Krishna is the complete whole and we are part and parcel of him, this verse is saying, therefore, accept only things that Krishna has given us, not other things which don't belong to us, that belong to Krishna or other living beings given to them by Krishna. So I will stop here, and we can open it up for discussion. Any thoughts, reflections?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam. Thank you so much for the wonderful lecture and beginning of Sri Upanishad. Prabhu, there was one slide where you mentioned there are four parts of Sri Upanishad. I
Yes.
couldn't take the notes very quickly on that.
Okay.
If you could please
Yes.
pull in that slide.
Yes. And see, this is like an Upanishadic text, so one thinks how, it's all going to be, one thinks that it's going to be all philosophy. But here we see that this Upanishad is so special because it's not just philosophy, it's actually bhakti. So the first part is the part we are discussing, the secret to satisfaction fulfillment, which I just read, text 1. Because that's really where Isopanisad starts, right? Invocation is an invocation. But it says the secret for satisfaction is only accepting what is our quota, knowing that Krishna is the supreme. The secret of satisfaction is realizing that Krishna is a complete whole. The second part defines good and evil. What is evil and what is good, and having knowledge of both. Ishopanishad makes a point. We have to understand both, actually. And then the third one is the Lord, who is God? It reveals the Lord. Is God, and we talked about that a little today also. It's already, these themes are also not completely sequential. They're like a spiral, they kind of overlap. So today we talked about the different aspects of the Lord. Who is the Lord? Brahman, Paramatma, Bhagavan. And finally, how do you get the mercy, or invoking Krishna's mercy, asking for his mercy to realize the Lord? That's the final part. So these are the 4 sections of the Ishopanishad.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Hare Krishna. Okay. Other Bhadra Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam.
Dandut Pranam.
Thank you for the wonderful class, Prabhu. So,
Thank
Prabhu, as we read that we should only accept what our quota is. Now, in this present material world, we are so engrossed endeavoring for so many different things. How do we know what is our quota and what is not our quota? Because we don't have any clarity whatsoever. We are just going with the flow, doing things as they come, listening to so many different, texts and lectures. And so and we are confused most of the time. So how
Yes.
do we figure out what is actually our quota and what is not?
Okay. Yes, Prabhu. So this is a wonderful point, and this is a very solid point. This is actually the in-depth discussion of Srila Prabhupada in his purport to text 1, which is how do we figure out what is our quota, what is given to us by the Lord. And this is where actually why we did Nectar of Instruction first, and then we did this book. Because Rupa Goswami is actually giving us the answer, which Prabhupada discusses more and we'll talk about more next time, is over endeavor, right? When there's over endeavor for something, when there's too much endeavor for some specific activity or action, then 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 we cannot say that uh, uh, then this is uh, this is accepting more than our quota. When we accept what comes by the Lord's plan with some effort, then that is accepting our quota, right? It's just like Ambarish Prabhu, Alfred Ford, right? He was born in wealth. You know, I once went to his home, and his home is like a wealthy person's home, very beautiful, and he's a wonderful devotee. Now, for a normal devotee, a life like that would be like, oh, so much luxury. This is material life. But for him, he can't even have less. I mean, that's natural for him. His neighbors, his family members, his society, everything, that's what's given to him. But then he's giving $50 million in Krishna service, right? So but he's still living in a wealthy house and he's still giving 50 million. So for him, that is his quota. He's not over endeavoring to become that millionaire. Krishna gave it to him. It's part of his quota. In my case, if I get a nice basic home and I'm living a happy, that's my quota. And if I strive to become an Ambarish Prabhu, that would be trying to get more than my quota. So over endeavor, that was Rupa Goswami's answer, that when we over endeavor, then we are going farther than our quota. And that over endeavor in material life, and that is then trying to become a controller, trying to get what Krishna didn't set aside for us, but trying to be the controller ourselves.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you. It's a nice question. And we will actually discuss this more in detail. And there's other points that Prabhupada mentions next time, because that's the topic of the verse. Vijay Nrsinga Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Thank you for starting this new series. Um, Not a question, but just a thought that, when we talked about the first, the invocation part, that how Krishna is all complete and everything that's coming from Krishna is also complete in itself, and it doesn't reduce the completeness of Krishna. The example that came by is the one that they give about the candles, like the initial candle lights all the other candles, and that flame, even though it's the same in all the candles, it does not diminish the first flame, the original
Yes.
candle. So just wanted to share that.
That's a very nice connection, Prabhu. That's actually a perfect connection, a perfect analogy for this verse. That how the analogy Prabhu is giving is when you light a lamp, which is the analogy of the Brahma Samhita, you take one lamp, you light another, another, you light a million lamps, but the first lamp still is just as brilliant as the others. And that's who Krishna is. He can expand himself unlimitedly. He can, through his incarnations, but also through the jivas, but still he remains perfectly complete. Yes. And still the original candle remains the original candle. We're still the sources of all of us is Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu. Rashmi Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Thank you for a wonderful class. Couple of thoughts, questions running in my mind. So one is, I just thought it's so interesting how this invocation is so different from what we studied in Nectar of Devotion, where I think they defined the Mangala Charanam as it offers obeisances. I think it bestows benedictions, and I'm forgetting another one. There was one more, but obeisances and benedictions. And this seems over here in Isopanisad, it seems to be such a declarative statement.
Yes, nice observation, actually. You're connecting with between the books, and this is so nice. The third one is it defines the content of a book.
Yes,
The
the book's
invocation.
objective. Yeah.
Yes. So you're right. In this one, the invocation just does the third one. So actually, it defines the content of the book, because this is the content. It's about God, Isopanisad, of the complete whole, and the complete whole's relationship with other completes. That is us, our relationship with that complete whole. So it perfectly actually describes the content, but it doesn't offer obeisances and give benediction. And it could be just my own thought on this. I don't have a reference for this, is that it could be because this is spoken by Krishna himself. So Krishna is,
Ah,
he doesn't have to offer obeisances to anyone. And the benediction in some ways is there in a indirect way, that it's it's we can realize our completeness through this spiritual knowledge. So maybe because it's Shruti, it has a different sense to it. Like Rupa Goswami is actually writing it as a devotee, but since this is spoken by the Lord, he just, he keeps that point.
yes.
Yes.
Yes, that is so beautiful. Thank you. And that makes so much sense. So the mood is completely different,
Yes.
is how I'm understanding that. Thank you. Thank you, Prabhuji, for that. The other thing, if I may ask another question, is
Yeah,
that,
of course. Yes, Mataji. Yes.
um, s- so it says in the invocation that everything that emanates from Krishna, because he's complete, is complete and it's perfect. And so this material world is complete and it's perfect.
Mm,
But we read in the Bhagavad Gita that the material world is dukkhalyam ashashvatam. So
mm,
it's temporary and it's full of miseries.
mm,
And Krishna is saying both.
mm.
How do we reconcile that? How do I understand that?
Yes, yes. So let's think about this for 1 second. That is, Krishna is saying that the material world is dukhalayam and ashashvatam, full of miseries and temporary. And here it's being said that anything emanating from the Lord, very importantly, the material world, is perfect. So your question is, how can both be true? So what do you all think? How can it be true? Yes, Ritesh Prabhu, go ahead.
So the material world is perfectly miserable. just putting it together. So it's yeah. So it's so the way I understand this is if we are in the material world, it is complete in the sense we don't the material world doesn't need anything from outside, like
Mm,
materially speaking, anything from outside. It can keep on functioning inside, and the living entities can keep on functioning inside
mm,
without depending upon something from outside coming in.
mm.
But then they will, or all the living entities will still just continue to be within the material world. So if we want to get out of this material world, we need to take shelter of Krishna. But if we don't
Yes.
take shelter of Krishna, everything will continue in the material world. So
Mm, yes.
So
Very
the
nice.
purpose is different. Is that so it's perfect. Yeah, thank you, Prabhu. So I guess it's perfect because it's not made, it's made for a different purpose. Sorry,
Mhm.
I'm just, the
Yes.
thoughts are just running in my head and I'm just speaking without thinking about it. But is that,
Yes. Yes. That's why we're getting very warm here. And that's exactly getting to Prabhupada's phrase, which is, he says, the material world is perfect for its purpose. It has dukhalyam and ashashvatam. It has suffering and it's temporary. But who says that that's a bad thing? We think of it, obviously suffering is a bad thing, but if the purpose, if the goal of this material world is to take us back to Krishna, then that it means it's perfect for its purpose. It's a perfect prison house, like you were saying, perfect prison
yeah,
house. The material prison house is imperfect. Why? Because the prisoners come out and they're still criminals. It doesn't rectify them. But the material world is perfect because anyone who comes out of it comes out perfectly corrected. And what this means is that if it's perfect for its purpose, it means that everyone must ultimately come out of it. So our philosophy theology also tells us that the material world is eternal, but no one is eternally in the material world, right? So the material world being eternal is different than someone being eternally in the material world. Everyone's stay in the material world has a beginning and an end. Now that stay may be very long, and that's where our part comes in. Whether it's 1,000,000 lifetimes or 1,000,000,000 lifetimes, that is up to us. But because it's perfect for its purpose, ultimately everyone has to be rectified because it's a perfect prison. A perfect prison always rectifies the prisoner. Now you may say, okay, that's very good. But to your point, Rashmi Mataji, you say, well, but Krishna created us imperfectly because why are we making the wrong desires, right? So your point still stands. The response is not so simple. Response for the material world is simple, that it's perfect for its purpose. It teaches us like a mother and brings us back. That's actually the meaning of the word Maya. Maya comes from the root ma, which means mother. And so it creates this world like a mother creates this world. It trains us and it teaches us like a mother teaches us. Like a mother sometimes, in previous times at least, slaps the child when they get really naughty. Material world slaps us. But why did Krishna make us so that we make the wrong decision? This is, a big problem because either Krishna put us here, and in that way, Krishna's imperfect because he's putting us through this bad experience, or our decision, our choice is putting us here. It's the latter because we don't say Krishna's evil. So it has to be the latter. We're here because of our choice. If we are here because of our choice, Krishna created us, and therefore it's Krishna's fault. And this is the same question that the Vedanta Sutra poses. That if God is a creator, how is it? It asks the exact same question. How is it that he created the living beings such that they do bad karma? Right? It took me actually almost a year to find this passage because I was studying the problem of evil as part of my PhD work. And so it's just like, where is this talked about? Because so the Vedanta Sutra answers this question. It's such an amazing conversation and discussion that takes place in the Vedanta Sutra. And what does the Vedanta Sutra say? What does the Vedanta Sutra say? He says, well, the objector says that in the beginning, the Lord created the jivas like this, and therefore the Lord is at fault. And to this, the Vedantin replies, but no, there is no beginning. That why we make the wrong choice is not Krishna's fault, because the living beings, and this comes to this verse, have always been part and parcel of Krishna. They've always been part of him, and that's why our choices are truly our choices. Krishna's allowing freedom and free will is not a fault on his part, but it's actually his great benediction. It goes to show his great power, his great his power. So again, it comes to the point of perfect for its purpose. Krishna could have made robots. Krishna could have made beings that never make a mistake. But he created a world with love, and love means freedom, and freedom means that we can make a mistake. So therefore, our capacity to make the wrong mistake, and Krishna's, will of not changing that, is not his imperfection, but that is his perfection, because he's made something perfect for its purpose. He's made real loving beings that have real freedom and free choice. And because we have no beginning, our choices are not his fault. Those are our choices. They're truly ours because we have eternally been part and parcel of Krishna with freedom and free will. And we make a choice sometimes to not love him. And that's our choice. Yes, he could have made a world where we don't have that choice, but then there's no love. Because if there's no freedom, there's no love. And freedom means that we will sometimes make the wrong choice. You can't ask the Lord to do logically inconsistent things. Just like you say, Krishna's all powerful, right? God's all powerful. So why can he not make free beings who never make a mistake? right? Why can't he do that? It's like asking, if God is all powerful, then can God draw a square circle? People, because this is a big thing, people keep asking these, they challenge religion for this. And so you say, you're saying God is all powerful, so he should be able to create a world with no suffering and also freedom and love. So can he create a world where there's a square circle? He's all powerful, but no, he cannot create a square circle because that's logically incoherent. Either you want a square or you want a circle. There's no meaning of drawing a square circle. In the same way, Krishna will not or cannot, I mean, he can, but he won't create a world in which there's free beings who don't have the option of not loving him. Right? That's asking him to do something that's logically incoherent. Now, why doesn't he help us more? He does. He sends his representatives. He has temples and churches and mosques at every street corner. He even gives us so much suffering to bring us to our senses. But the moment the suffering is gone, again, we go back into our material thing and we want to do this. So Krishna is created this material world out of his compassion. Bhagavatam says he does not want to, but he does so to facilitate our desires and allowing us to exercise our freedom. But he's so perfect that he makes a world that ultimately we realize our mistake, we come back to him. And in some ways, this increases our love for him. Because once we come through this material world and we come back to him, we never make that mistake again.
Mm.
So yes.
So much to digest here. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Yes, very important and deep discussion. Actually, this can be a whole talk in of itself. But we'll, because it's a big topic, this problem of evil, it's called. Why, if God is perfect, why is there evil and suffering in the world? This is a big topic, and one that actually only our scriptures give a satisfactory response. Every religion in the world battles with this topic. Yes. Thank you. Saujanya, you're next.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for the wonderful lecture.
Thank you.
I feel so blessed to be part of this session.
Thank you.
And I have one question related to this Shabda Parimana.
Mm.
So we have imperfect senses. So for us to move towards a perfection, so we can use Shabda Parimana. And we can consume from what we have it in our Vedas and we can get that perfection. Here, aren't we still relied on our senses for that internal understanding or internal consumption of this knowledge? Still, our analogy or the illusion will be in place to carry that information from the Vedas to within us, right? I mean, I believe I explained properly of what I'm thinking. Am I making sense with my question?
Repeat it one more time.
Okay. So if we are using Shabda Parimana,
Yes.
then aren't we still relied on our senses for understanding it internally?
Yes. Yes. You see, every question that we've asked has been asked before and answered before. So actually and that's why we should ask them, such a nice question. Actually, our acharyas say this, that even to understand Shabda, the Vedas, you need sense perception. And that's why pratyaksha, as you are saying, is the supreme path of epistemology. In other words, it's the supreme form of gaining knowledge. Because even the scriptures are read and heard through the senses, and we can understand them imperfectly, right? However, at the same time, we cannot simply rely on our senses. Because though they're understood through our senses, we still need the scriptures to give us the guidance. Like the example of the child who wants to know who his father is. Yes, his mother could be cheating him. Yes, he could mishear his mother, right? He could hear, she said something, he heard something. But still, our day-to-day experiences that if you ask your mother and this is one example, but for any topic that she knows something about, you can get real knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
If you ask the teacher, if you ask someone with more knowledge who's an authority on the subject, you get that knowledge very easily. So Krishna has also given us our senses, and he's given us them to us enough where if our desire and intention is actually to know him, they are capable enough to understand Vedic knowledge, right?
Okay.
So we do have to go to a higher source, but it's not that he's given us the senses which are so incompetent that if we are if we're approaching the right source with good intention, not because we want to cheat ourselves or we don't want the real thing, we just want something that makes us feel good, or helps our material life, we will be able to get that spiritual real knowledge if we're actually
Mm.
there for the right purpose.
Okay.
Yes.
And maybe I'm asking the same question again, the next one,
Go ahead.
about our quota, about
Mhm.
knowing our quota.
Yes.
So a person who, I mean, for an example, for an instance, a person who is born in a middle class family,
Mm.
and if we think, can we think that it is his quota and he should stop trying from raising from there? Or how do we know that quota? Like
Yes. Yes.
satisfaction is important, satisfaction
Mhm.
is happiness, but in other way, that may also um, let you not raise till what is your potential, right?
Right. So again, we'll talk about this more next time. I think it was my fault
Okay.
to read that verse because I read it and then it raised so much questions. So it's good. It kind of makes us anticipate the next week. But
Mm-hmm.
again, in 1 minute, I'll just try to answer that. That uh, again, the discussion is um, uh, that um, if we are taking something which is not sanctioned by Krishna, right, then we are taking more than our quota because it doesn't belong to us. It belongs to Krishna, and Krishna hasn't given it to us. So a very simple, straightforward example of this is like eating meat. It is our right to fill our belly. It's our right to be satisfied. It's our right to eat. But Krishna told us your quota is vegetables. Your quota is fruits. And if you eat meat, you get cancer. And that's why there's so many cancers. When we do more than our quota, in the same way our work, right, to your example, your question, we can realize our potential, we can pursue it. But we all know if we take up too much stress, stress leads to anxiety, which leads to so many diseases, right?
Mm.
So the result of taking more of our quota is not just something that we should do. We'll see the result. We cannot do more than our quota. If we do that, we materially speaking, spiritually speaking, there's no limit because Krishna's given each soul the whole spiritual world, and there's no limit to spiritual life. But materially speaking, if we do more, we get sick. It's not even that Krishna's making us. We will see the negative result of that. And that's
Mm-hmm.
why the next verse after that says that one who lives in this way can live for hundreds of years. One who lives in a way that he only accepts his quota can live for hundreds of years.
Mm-hmm. So, in short, whatever we are having right now in our hands is our quota, and we should
No,
find
not
a
necessarily.
satisfaction in it. Okay.
Yeah, not necessarily. Maybe we need to endeavor more, but we have
Mm-hmm.
to endeavor based on the scriptures. We can endeavor to have a business, but we can't have a beef business. We can
Mm.
endeavor to be great in our job, but we cannot endeavor so much that we have no time to chant and we have no time for spiritual life.
Mm.
That is accepting more than our quota.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yes. Thank you. Very nice
Yeah.
question.
Yeah. Thank you, Guruji. Thank you for the clarification.
Hari.
Hare Krishna.
Ritesh Prabhu, you had a comment or question?
Yes, Prabhu, I got answered. So I had the same question. If our senses are imperfect, how to overcome them? How because we are also hearing the scripture. So thank you. Got answered. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Prabhu. Nice point. I'm glad we see, Sojanya, you had the same question that someone else had. So it's very good. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Hari Priya, now we will have the summary and we'll end right on time.
Yes, so we saw that what the meaning of Isopanisad. So Isha means the supreme controller, and Upanishad means to sit near a spiritual master. So Upa means near, Ni means down, and Sad means to sit. And out of the four Vedas, Ishopanishad is from Yajur Veda, which means yagya. So Yajur means yagya, and and Ishopanishad, it is a Parashya, and it's a Parashya because it doesn't has a, like a author, and that's why. And it unlocks the secret to satisfaction. It defines good and evil, and it reveals the Lord, and it invokes Krishna's mercy. And then we saw that belief plus action equals lifestyle. So sambandha plus avidya equals prayojana. And then we can see four defects in ourselves, that we commit mistakes, we come into illusion, or accept something that is not. Uh, and you gave the example of the mirage, that we think that in the mirage there's water, but there's no water. And third two is to have imperfect senses, and to be cheated or cheat. And we can see that only the mother can tell the child's father, child who his father is, because she is the authorized authority. And we can see that if we see things by using the glasses of Vedas, things will be shown more clearly. And then we can see that it that that's the summary of the four verses, the four starting verses, is that invocation is the principle of completeness. Mantra 1 is to how to practice that completeness. Mantra 2 is the positive result of such practice. Mantra 3 and Mantra 3 is the negative result of not doing such practice. And then we can see that the invocation, some points from the invocation is that the Supreme Lord is complete in three aspects: Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. And one of my last point is that the hand is considered complete because it is connected to the body. So until we are connected to Krishna, we are complete. So thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that wonderful summary. As always, you really do this wonderful seva by helping all of us remember the key points. Thank you. So we'll meet next week, and I'll share the homework and study guide with all of you on the group. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare
Hare
Krishna,
Krishna,
Prabhuji.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Krishna,
Hare
Dandavad
Krishna,
Pranam, Jai
Prabhuji.
Srila
Hare
Prabhupada.
Krishna,
Prabhuji,
Krishna,
Hare
Dandavat
Krishna.
Pranam, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Dandavat
Hare
Pranam.
Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam.
Dandavat Pranam.
Thank you so much for the
Dandavat
wonderful
Pranam.
class.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Dandavat